Vice Provost Anthony Tillman, and Valencia Jones. Welcome, team.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Valencia?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Valencia Jones, Senior Associate Director, Inclusion and Access and Special Populations at Washington University in St. Louis. Welcome.
And this is Anthony Tillman, Assistant Provost for Student Success and Director of the Deneb STARS program in the Office for Student Success here at Washington University in St. Louis. So I guess it's my show right now. Is that right, Brittany?
That's correct. Take it away.
Okay. Well, to the audience, I thank all of you for taking time out of your day to share these next couple of minutes or moments with us. Valencia and I are really happy and thrilled to be working at Washington University in this time and day, which we think is a very exciting time for students all across the United States, and especially the students for whom this particular webinar is focused upon. When you think about, reducing barriers for low-income and first-generation college students, I think it's important to put this in context. Many of you have worked with these students on a day-to-day basis for, more or less for the past 4 years, and you have, pretty much understand many of the challenges that they've had to address, and many of the barriers they themselves at this point in time in their lives have had to overcome to get to a point where they actually have just earned their high school diploma. But I want to, again, put this in context because it's really important to understand the national landscape as it relates to discussions and conversations regarding students from low socioeconomic status backgrounds and also students from first-generation college backgrounds. One of the first data points I would like to share with you is that the median income for first-generation students and low-income students last year is about $37,565, and that's compared to $99,635 for non-first-generation and low-income students. So you can see right there, that right there is a significant discrepancy. For fall 2018. Of the 20 million students who entered college last year, 30% or 6 million of them were first generation, and 7 million or 35% of them were Pell Grant recipients, otherwise known as a proxy for low income. And then finally, when you look at the data from the Southern Education Foundation, you read and you realize that currently 51% of all students in U.S. public schools are low income. And so this generation, or this target population of students, especially those students within that realm who are high achieving and also low income, is only going to continue to grow as we go further into the years going forward. So this is going to be the new market niche, if you will, if I can use that expression loosely, of the students for whom schools like WashU and many others will be trying to encourage to attend our institutions. So one of the ways that we have responded to this, these realities in the public square, if you will, in 2016 we created the Office for Student Success, and on this splash page you see many of the students who are participating, and the reason they have on T-shirts in various colors is that they represent various aspects of the program, which I'll get into later. Okay, it's supposed to. Oh, there we had. I want to try to make sure it advanced. I'm not. This technology always bothers me. So the guy on the far left, depending on how you're looking at this, that's me. I'm Anthony Tillman. I'm the one. I think I have a little bit more hair right now, but I'm not sure. In the middle is Miss Lucy Chen. She's our coordinator for student success, and immediately to her right or left, or your right, is Dr. Harvey Fields. He's our now Associate Dean for Student Success here at with the program. It's important to know that Lucy in the middle, she's an WashU alum. She graduated in 2017, and her position specifically, the coordinator's position, is one that we've designed for recent graduates of Washington University. So we employ the near peer model in this regard, of having someone who's very close to the age and experiences of the students coming into Washington University to hold that role in this regard. And Dr. Fields so Lucy, let me back up for a second, is primarily responsible for all of our student engagement elements of the program. And Dr. Fields is responsible for all of our academic engagement elements of our program. As a background and some history, as I mentioned earlier, the Office for Student Success was established in July of 2016. We are part of the Office of the Provost, and we are fulfilling the mission of the institution to increase its footprint with respect to students from low socioeconomic status backgrounds. To provide you with some context, and some of you may already know this, and it's just part of our history and nothing that we shy away from and in terms of transparency. More than a few years ago, the New York Times published an article or an essay, or however you want to describe it, that looked at schools in the top, national universities, which is about 270 in the United States, and to compare these students, to compare the institutions in terms of the population of students from low-income backgrounds, again, using the Pell Grant as a proxy for low income. And what they discovered, and I think this was around 2011, was that Washington University, of all of the schools that were looked at, we were at the bottom of that list. I think at the time they looked at, I think they isolated about 70 colleges or universities, and I think of those 70, we were at the bottom of the list. And at that point in time, our percentage of students from low-income backgrounds was about 5 or 6%. At that point in time, the university made a commitment to change that dynamic and made a goal to have our total student body population be represented by 13% of students from low-income backgrounds by the year 2020. Valencia can go into more detail about where we are with those numbers, but this year is my understanding that of that target population, it represents 15% of our incoming students. And over the past 3 years, now going into the 4th year, we've made some incredible strides with respect to reaching our goal of 20%. So I think that's important to understand the context with respect to why the office was founded and why we are doing what we are doing, primarily to ensure that as an institution, with the resources that we have, that we're fortunate to have, that we're opening up those resources and those doors to students of all talents and backgrounds, regardless of their financial situation. So, mea culpa, we've the error of our ways in the past, if you will, we're making a lot of strides to rectify that. And so we're fully engaged in this process. The Office for Student Success, we operate on 4 pillars, and those are index of equity, cultural wealth, high impact educational practices, and a framework for success. And I can discuss those in more detail during the Q&A. You have some particular questions about those. Some of the things that we do across the university, again, we're trying to take a very holistic approach with respect to what are potential barriers to students being successful here at the university. And many of our students, particularly those who are receiving Pell Grants, and many first-generation students, have work study as part of their financial aid award, if you will. And I'm sure, like many of you who have gone to college and may have had a work study job in college, it's kind of like the mundane. You work in the library, you shelve books, and it's just something to do. And by and large, the vast majority of work study positions are still in that similar vein. However, what we're trying to achieve here, and one of the things we want to do, and based upon research and best practices, we want students to have work study opportunities, of course, because it helps them, to use the expression, put some money in their pocket. But at the same time, we want them to have meaningful work study opportunities. And so our initiative is trying to create these employment opportunities for students where they can gain both professional kinds of competencies, career development, or even work as in research and trying to convert certain research opportunities as work study funded opportunities. So we're trying to help students create a sense of social capital for whom they may not have any when they get here, but how do they create social capital to help them advance beyond their education and beyond their degree once they leave here, so they have some real practical and tactical skills to use. We all know that many schools like WashU and others, many of us do a relatively good job, I would say, with respect to providing students with the requisite funding to support tuition and fees, room and board, otherwise known as the cost of attendance. However, we envisioned early on, as we were founding this program, that there were other needs that financial aid just would not cover. And so we can see before you, when we read the bullet about resource for student success, we have 3 funds currently in operation to support 3 different endeavors as it relates to removing barriers towards a student's educational attainment here at WashU. The first is the Student Success Fund, and the best way to describe it, it is a fund that's supported through donors to address any emergencies that may arise in the student's time here at the institution. So emergencies could simply be, well, not simply, if a student needs to suddenly fly home because a close parent or a relative is ill, or a student finds that all of a sudden the computer they had in high school is no longer working here in college, and they do not have the funds to repair or buy a new one. The Student Success Fund can support that. The Student Success Fund has also been instrumental in helping students with certain costs associated with study abroad opportunities, internship opportunities. Many students will find that an unpaid internship is great because of the experience and exposure that they will acquire, but can they afford to be unpaid in the summer with respect to living expenses? And so the Student Success Fund is an opportunity to help students bridge that particular gap. The Student Union Mental Health Fund and the Student Union Opportunity Fund are incredible avenues, and in the sense of that they are really student facing, in the sense that they are sponsored and funded vis-a-vis the student union here at Washington University. So the student union here at WashU is comparable to what you may consider a student government organization, or SGA. Some at other schools, different schools call them, have different names for them. But the Student Union Mental Health Fund was developed by, in concert with my office, to support students from low-income backgrounds to address mental health needs with respect to finding or paying for providers, especially co-pays that insurance wouldn't cover, and medications and co-pays for medication and things of that nature to help them with their treatment. And the Student Union Opportunity Fund was developed by the Student Union in concert with my office to help students from low-income backgrounds who do not have the funds to participate in student union or university-sponsored programs and events. Like any college or university, it's filled with a lot of activities, events, programs, performances. Some of them have a price tag associated with them, and some do not. But for those that do, for students who could not afford to participate, then they were not having a full, engaging educational experience here at WashU, and you began to create unintentionally, if you will, a bifurcation in your student population, which starkly identifies the haves and the have-nots. So the Student Union Opportunity Fund was a way to try to mitigate that, and in concert with us, we work to help students get the funds they need to be successful in those regards. Professional development opportunities, basically those involve, we push all of our students to take on leadership roles. We push all of our students to engage in activities that will help them, prepare them to be competitive once they graduate. And so professional development opportunities include internships, research opportunities, making presentations at various conferences, attending conferences, if you will. And then individual student engagement, as I mentioned before, we work closely with the academic advising apparatus here on campus, and we also help students in supporting navigating on-campus resources. The Deneb STARS program. This is right now our signature student-facing program within the Office for Student Success. It's a 4-year cohort that provides, various elements of community building, co-curricular and professional development opportunities, and helping students with their transition into, through, and beyond Washington University. And this is important because it's not necessarily like some programs, some schools will have support programs of this nature that simply focus on getting students through the first year from high school to college, and then sometimes that's it. Our program is based on a 4-year transitional model with respect to what happens, what are the key milestones that occur in the first year, key milestones that will occur in the second year, third, and fourth year. And these are identified by our 4 operational pillars: scholarship, leadership, service, and integration. Scholarship is key in first because it builds the floor, and we guide our students and help them understand that that's your singular focus, is to develop your academic foundation. Because with a strong academic foundation, especially in your first year, and you continue to build upon that, then opportunities as they present themselves to you in the latter part of your college career will be easy to navigate and easy to participate in. So we ask all of our students. It's not, if it were mandatory, I would probably get a Nobel Peace Prize for this, but we ask all of our students to strive to achieve a 3.5 cumulative GPA, because what we want the students to do is, when they come to Washington University as undergraduates, we want them to graduate with distinction. It's clear to us from the very beginning through their admissions process that they have the acumen necessary to graduate from this institution. So the students in the program will hear from me on many occasions, and I do not talk about when you graduate. I do not talk about, well, I should say, I do not talk about if you graduate, because to me it's clear that you are. The question is, how are you going to leverage these 4 years here so that when you do graduate, you're graduating with the opportunities to do some of the things you envisioned you wanted to do when you started this college process back in kindergarten. So the first pillar is focused on scholarship. The second one is on leadership, because we want students to understand that with the value of any college education, there's an expectation that you will convert your education into leadership, that you will be a leader in your community. If that community is here on this campus, if that community is somewhere that's adjacent to the campus, or the community wherever you wind up once you graduate, we expect you to take on, to be a leader in that regard. And when we say leadership, we're not necessarily talking about, having to be a titular leadership, but just be a leader and understand what leadership means, and how do you convert leadership into action. And then the third pillar is service. We believe that every student who receives the opportunity to receive a college education should be in service to others, to assist them in any way that they can. If the service helps other students in terms of tutoring, to be able to be prepared to go to college, or whatever it may be, if it's service helping in a local not-for-profit, there's an expectation for us that you will use this opportunity not only to better yourself, but to better others and be in service to others. And then lastly, integration is all about the culmination of these 3 years going into your last year. How do you pull all this together and now are now in a position to go forward into either graduate or professional school, what I call the world of work, or what I also call a very structured gap year. And the gap year phenomenon is very popular now, but I use the term structured because what I say to students is that your gap year needs to be strategic and not a gap year where you try to catch up on Netflix. That's not what we want them to do. So those are the 4 pillars of the Deneb STARS program. And within our program, what really makes it work are what I call our student Leadership Corps. And our Student Leadership Corps is comprised of these 4 groups here. Our aspirational peer mentors, our students, our APMs as we call them, work with our incoming class. So these are continuing students who are either sophomores or juniors. In some cases, we have a couple of seniors, but their primarily role is to help the first years with their transition through that first year of college here at WashU. And each APM has approximately 5 or 6 mentees who are first years that they meet on a regular basis. So they meet with them weekly, 1 hour a week, and then every other week, every 2 weeks, they come together as a group and do group projects or group events together. This year, we're introducing our sophomore peer mentors because when you read the literature, it's clear and evident that sophomores tend to be the forgotten children at most colleges and universities because many universities spend the lion's share of their resources on first years. In first years, it's important because that third semester retention percentage and N is critical for a host of reasons. But then, the sophomores feel like they're like, we've forgotten about them because when you get to your junior year, you're really into your major. As you begin your senior year, you're beginning to think about, life after college. But in the sophomore year, there's still some critical decision-making elements that you have to think about, and we're trying to make sure that we don't forget about them and help them continue to be strivers and successful as they go into their junior year. Then we have the student program coordinators, and those are generally our students who are juniors and seniors. And I would say that the best way to describe what they do, they're kind of like the administrative arm of the Student Leadership Corps with respect to being involved in determining what programs will be administered, different types of events, what types of support mechanisms we should put in place. I would say the best way to describe them, they're kind of like the boots on the ground for my team and I with respect to engaging the entire model and getting information back from the APMs and now the sophomore peer mentors with respect to some of the issues that we need to think about in addressing some of the challenges going forward. And I think that's important because I have, collectively many years of experience in this field, but I always believe that I do not know everything. But what's important about this program here is that it's very organic. And it's organic in the sense that it allows for very strong student input. So it's not what Tony Tillman thinks students need to do or should know. It's informed by what students are experiencing, so we can put actions in place to help address some of those concerns, because students know better in real time what they need and what's important than I will in the lofty tower that I sit in here in Brookings College or in Brookings Hall. And then lastly, the thing that rounds out our Student Leadership Corps is the Graduate Resource Corps. And the Graduate Resource Corps is exactly what it sounds like. These are graduate students, many of them who are first or second year graduate students, many of them who themselves may have been first generation or low income, who are, and we've employed them to engage our students with respect to, the way I like to describe it, recitation sessions to discuss concepts in the various courses that they are engaging. And right now, some of those big courses tend to be our large introductory courses in the sciences, chemistry, physics, biology, various levels of math, calculus 1, 2, and or 3, computer science, and psychology. So we want the students, to have a good understanding of the concepts associated with those courses, because especially in STEM-related courses, there's not a sense of equivalency across the board nationally in terms of how students are learning or being introduced or exposed to various material. And so we have seen over, in the time that I've been here, a discrepancy with respect to students' level of preparation and how that aligns or sometimes is misaligned with the courses and curriculum that we are teaching here. Now, I'm not in a position to change the curriculum, but I think I'm in a position to help provide students with the resources they can use to help them navigate the curriculum in a better manner than they have been in the past. And all this begins with our early arrival program, which you see the date here is August 16, 2019. So we invite the students to come back a day earlier than the regular first years so that we can begin to engage them in an orientation within an orientation program, if you will. We believe that it's important that we have at least 1 to 2 or 3 days face time with them to help them understand our philosophy, our expectations, to hear from them about any concerns, fears, or challenges they anticipate they may experience. And then we move from that into, we have a first year fall retreat, and then we have a all class spring retreat in the spring. And then throughout the course of both the fall and the spring semesters, we have a series of social programs. One of the more popular ones is that every Friday from 3 to 5 o'clock during the operation of the semesters, we have what's called an end of week unwind. And it's really crazy. We have anything, donuts, cookies, cupcakes, but it's just an opportunity for students to come by on Friday to network with each other, to fellowship with each other, to just, to use the expression, to just chill. It's Friday, it's 3 o'clock. I just need a break, and this is a good place to go, hang out with my friends, get something to eat, low stress, low maintenance. But like I said, it's become very popular, and it's great to go by there and to see the students engaging with each other and just a sense of community, if you will. And again, our program is very holistic in a lot of ways, because it's not one particular type of student who's a part of the Deneb STARS program. And the program is available for all students in any academic program, so we're not focused specifically on just students in STEM. Regardless of the major, every student is welcome, and we work with all students in that regard. And we also liken ourselves as a springboard to help students explore other opportunities across the university that they may not have considered. For example, one of the things that we're going to launch this upcoming fall are a couple of sessions on what do you need to do as a first-year student to prepare yourself, if you have the inclination to do so, to prepare yourself to be a candidate for Phi Beta Kappa. What do you need to do as a student in the first year to prepare yourself if you want to be a recipient of the Truman Scholarship, and on and on and on. Because I think, again, when you consider some of the backgrounds of some of the students that we are targeting, Phi Beta Kappa, Truman Scholarship, these are, you may as well be speaking a foreign language to them because they have no idea what that is or what it means, or the important value of having to achieve or accomplish something of that nature. So again, what we try to do is, fill in what we know are known gaps in terms of college knowledge, but also help them understand, fill in other gaps as it relates to the educational enterprise that's called, Washington University, and also the things that will be associated with how you then leverage and navigate your degree once you leave from here. And Phi Beta Kappa is the oldest national honor society that we have, and it's international. Once you achieve Phi Beta Kappa status, you're like in this uber mega fraternity, if you will, that constantly engages you. And so we want students to understand and have that understanding that yes, you may have a particular idea what you want to major in, but your college education can be so much more than the 4 years that you are here at the university. And so I think that's about it for me. I'll be open to questions, and Brittany, take it away.
All right, team. So we're going to actually open up for questions, and these questions can be addressed to Vice Provost Tillman around student success, the first-gen low-income student experience, any of the discussion points he mentioned during the conversation. But this is also a great opportunity to ask Valencia Jones, who is in the admissions office, some questions. So as you guys are typing away, I have a couple of questions that came in from counselors. Can you give an explicit success story or example of a student from the DNIP programs?
Well, that's a good. I understand the question, and I think to put it in context, and I'm not being evasive. It all depends on how you want to define success. But I think I have an idea of, in generally, what this means. So I can give you one story. We have a student who's going to be a junior, rising junior, and his first his first 2 semesters as a first year. I mean, they were not great. They weren't bad, but they weren't really great. So then, and he found himself on academic probation at the end of his first year. We worked with him over the summer. We worked with him with a lot of focus during the course of the fall semester. And at the end of the fall semester, again, this is a student who's into the first year, he was on academic probation. At the end of his fall semester of his sophomore year, he did so well. He made academic honors. He was on the dean's list. And I haven't looked at his grades yet for this current spring semester, but I'm sure he's maintained that same momentum and trajectory. So when I think about all the elements of what we are doing with the DNIP stars, with the mentoring, with the APMs, with Dr. Fields, and what we call an algorithm for success for students who find themselves in academic jeopardy, I would say that particular student, for us, and there are many others similar, but for us, that one in particular was a major success to go from academic probation to dean's list in the span of one semester.
Thank you. A couple of questions. I'm going to group this together. How do you all evaluate your programs? Are there any specific metrics that you all capture?
Well, we evaluate our program using standard metrics to begin with, and the standard metrics are credit hours earned versus attendance. We look at what that ratio is. We look at the number of classes that a student has that are D, F, or W. We also look at semester and cumulative GPAs. So those are pretty much standard. And again, recognizing that this program is still 3 years old, so we do not have graduation rates yet. But our retention rates are like, within the 97th percentile because, our retention rate is very good with students in DNIP. The other elements of our evaluation are more in the student engagement realm, and in that realm, we are assessing whether or not the programming that we have in place is effective. And by effective, meaning that our students getting from it the objectives and goals that we have built into the program that we want them to learn. And so we do those kinds of assessments, and we also do end of year assessments with respect to, of all the programs that we have provided, again, which ones have you attended? We look at attendance, we look at outcomes and things of that nature. So we have assessment in both areas, both the academic side and also in the student engagement side.
I have a question from Arlene. How many students do you serve within the STARS program?
Right now, through the first 3 cohorts, first, second, and third years, we have approximately 350 students. With the class of 2023, and thank you, Valencia, we have 171 that'll be a part of the program. So the 171 is 50 students more than we traditionally have brought in over the past 3 years, and so we've are addressing that by we've hired more student leadership corps members, and we're also employing more graduate students to help with our deliverables. But so beginning fall 2019, there will be 521 students in the program.
Thank you. And do students need to opt in of the DNIP STARS program? Also, does your program track students who do not participate actively but could still benefit from your services?
Well, yes, it is a program of invitation. So we receive our information of admitted and deposited students from the Office of Admissions. Based upon that information, we then send each of the students an invitation to participate in the Deneb STARS program. And some students will, as you can well imagine, accept the invitation, and some students will not accept the invitation, which I do not understand. But that aside, to the second part of that question, yes, we do. We do track, to use that terminology, or monitor, or follow how those students are doing who chose not to accept our initial invitation. However, not accepting the invitation the first time you receive it does not close the door on future participation, because we've had students who initially who said no, at some point in the semester or after a year, come back and say, hey, I would like to be in the program. Is the opportunity still available? And we always say yes.
All right. Does the Student Success Program offer opportunities or outlets for students to safely express issues or circumstances from home that may impact their academic performance?
Oh, absolutely. We encourage all of our students to be as open and honest with us as they feel comfortable. One of the key roles of our APMs, in terms of meeting with them on a weekly basis, is to assess how they are doing. And we're not asking our APMs to work in any type of paraprofessional healthcare or health giver role or provider in that regard. We just want them to check in. And if there's an issue that should arise, then we employ various referral services to help that student get the support that she or he may need. Which is why, for us, the aspirational peer mentors are so key, because they are the ones who are like basically living, if you will, in quotations, with the students and understanding their experiences. And when it works, and it works more times than not, rapport is built, trust is built, and we get a lot of information that otherwise we would not have access to, because our primary goal is such, we don't want any student to fall through the cracks. Now some will, and it's just being honest, it just happens. But to the extent that we can prevent much of that from occurring, yes, we encourage all of our students to be as open and honest about issues as they feel comfortable sharing.
Thank you. Next question comes from Mark Stucker. If you had to select what you feel are the most important changes you have implemented that have contributed to the 97% retention rate, what would you select? And one more comment from Mark. Can you please tell Valencia I said hi? She was amazingly helpful to me last year with a freshman named Mola Adeyemi, who would not be at WashU if it were not for her being amazing! Exclamation point.
All right, Valencia.
So to revisit the question, if you had to select...
I got the question.
Okay, perfect.
So for Mark and others, let's put this in context. I would encourage everyone to read some articles or books by Terrell Strayhorn. His focus of research is on sense of belonging, and I say that because I think what has led to our strong success is that the students who come here from this particular background, and especially for students from low-income backgrounds, Washington University is a school of affluence. There's no question about that under any circumstance, under any metric that you want to consider. We are a rich, wealthy institution. Our tuition is $70,000 plus a year. As I mentioned earlier, many of the students in this program, average income is $37,000 a year. So when they get here, all of the accomplishments that they achieved to be at a school like WashU or any other sometimes begins to diminish rapidly when they realize the fullness of the environment that they are in. So, and so as a consequence, prior to, students would feel very isolated. They would feel as though they didn't have a voice and or place on campus, or even if they belonged on campus. So, we also address, I did mention earlier, issues associated with the imposter syndrome. But I would say that we put a lot of energy in designing and developing our community, our student engagement piece, so that students feel a part of this community. In the earlier slide, you saw they had T-shirts. They has the Nev Stars logo on the front of it, and on the back of it, our motto is prepare, pursue, and persist. And so we get these students to buy into the fact that this is their university. We don't care if you came in through the front door, the side door, the back door. All of you are going to leave through the front door. And so we've given them a sense of place, and a sense of belonging, and a sense of community, which I believe is the one singular thing that we have. If we did nothing else, just doing that, helping students feel confident that they belong here, has helped us achieve the kind of outcomes that we have we've achieved, and that we continue to expect to achieve going forward.
And a follow-up question, is it restricted for first gens? Can non-first gen students of color participate?
Well, initially, given the strategic mission and initiative of the institution, our primary focus has been on students from low-income backgrounds and first-generation backgrounds. So this student is non-first generation, non-low income, but also a student of color. I would encourage that student to reach out to us, and we will, we'll have a conversation with that student. I'm not saying this is not a no. I'm saying we will want to speak with the student to help the student understand the parameters of our program, and we want to want the student to understand and see whether or not this is something they wish to participate in, because we don't want to put anyone into something and they don't feel a good fit. Okay, because everything is important about your level of comfort, your confidence, peer relationships, if you will. So I wouldn't. It's not a no, but I would say that if a student has a strong interest in participating, then that's a sidebar conversation that student and I should have, because I just want to make sure that we're not putting a student in a situation that could create a barrier and have an unintended outcome or consequence.
Another question from Rashad Rich. How do you help students from a housing standpoint? How do you address barriers to food and housing insecurity?
Well, the food insecurity issue, I can answer. The housing insecurity issue, I'm not sure that's applicable here at Washington University, because we can guarantee housing to just about any student who wants to live on campus. So those opportunities exist. It is the case that housing costs at WashU, like any other institution, rise every year. And for a student who is receiving financial assistance from our institution, their financial aid will be indexed to those rises in tuition or cost of attendance, if you will. So we do a good job in that regard. With respect to food insecurity, that's kind of a complicated or complex case-by-case situation, because I've worked with my colleagues in student financial services. I've worked with my colleagues in dining services, and we've tried to really look at this issue. And so here's what we discovered, is that the meal plans that are the silver meal plan, for example, does cover 3 meals a day. The challenge becomes when students want more than 3 meals a day. They want a snack here or a snack there or things of that nature. That's not part of, quote, the meal plan. That's when we find students are finding themselves challenged with respect to low meal points at a certain point in the semester. So to answer your question more directly, I apologize for the long-windedness, is that when we find students when students identify to us that they are having challenges with their meal plan, then what we do we provide supplemental meal points for them to get them through whatever point of the semester they find themselves in to the end of the semester, because the meal point system kicks in again beginning the following semester, but the points do not roll over, but they will kick in. The new system will start in the next semester. So if a student finds herself or himself challenged at any point in the semester before the semester ends, then we will subsidize some of those meal points for them.
The pillars: framework for success, high impact practices, cultural wealth. She's missing the last one. How do these pillars underpin the program?
Well, the first one was index of equity, and so essentially that essentially speaks to, we want to make sure that every student has every opportunity to participate equally in any options available here at the institution. So we want to make sure that there are no barriers that will not allow a student to engage in various types of educational experiences, non-educational experiences. We want, to the best of our ability, to have equity, if you will, across those barriers, so that students can walk across that threshold and participate. So that's fundamental. We want, we can't control for a student's financial background in terms of what they were able to be exposed to or not exposed to, but when they step on our campus, we want to make sure that every student has the ability to participate in any type of activity that the university provides. Cultural wealth simply speaks to the fact that we're not asking students to acclimate to who we are to that degree. We want them to maintain their sense of who they are, their sense of being, the level of self-worth, the level of self-efficacy. We want them to bring all the things that make them who they are to this campus, and we will celebrate that. We want them their levels of resiliency, their ethnicity, their racial background, their gender. All of those things are part of who you are in terms of your dynamic as an individual, as a human being, and that's the wealth you bring to our institution. And we're not going to put ourselves in a position that will diminish that. So we celebrate a student's cultural wealth. High impact educational practices, that's a big one across many colleges and universities, and those tend to include study abroad experiences. Those tend to include research experiences, internships, things of that nature. So we build our program, again, when I talk about opportunities, professional development and otherwise, we build some of those elements in there so that students are engaging in those activities which support, because high impact educational practices, the theory and the research suggests that when students are engaged in these types of activities, A, retention is better, B, grades are better, and C, their experience with the institution is better. And from where I sit as as an administrator here, I want students to have a good 4-year experience, because if a student has a good 4-year experience, they may be a good alumni and give the school some money. So I'm pushing that. But high impact educational practices really falls into that category of helping students really engage deeper thinking, critical thinking, and engage the education at a much higher level. And a framework for success is simply, again, looking at each student individually, collectively, and determining what elements do we need to put in place to ensure that students maintain a high level of achievement, a high level of accomplishment, that they leave here with the goals and objectives that they had in mind. And so a framework success beginning in the first year and continues through to their senior year. It incorporates engagement with our career services office. As an example, it incorporates engagement with our graduate school program, so that students can begin an understanding of what it means to be a graduate student. How does one become a graduate student? So it's all of those elements that help them understand that, success is primarily how you want to define it, but there are certain elements of success that we want to help you to achieve, so that as you move forward, your undergraduate years here are successful, and your life beyond here will continue to be successful.
And thank you so much, Vice Provost Tillman. We are about to conclude. This was really informative. Just to end with one question, I have 2 students attending in fall. Do you have any recommendations for me as a counselor that I can share with my incoming WashU students?
I have 2 that I think are critical. One is encourage your students to not be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is not a weakness, it's not a detriment, it's not a deterrence. Asking for help is a strength. Secondly, encourage your students to form study groups, because if students study in isolation, they just have one perspective on a particular concept or ideology or whatever the subject matter or assignment is. But in a study group, you have the advantage of engaging a multiple number of ideas and concepts that may give you insight that you hadn't thought about. So I would encourage students to not be afraid to ask for help, and to be assertive in engaging in developing or joining study groups.
All right. Well, thank you. This concludes our Q&A session. I'm going to go ahead and lead with an outro, but I first want to say thank you so much, Vice Provost Tillman, for providing your honest feedback and transparency. I know many of our counselors found this very helpful and informative and insightful as they are bringing in students to the WashU experience, but also evaluating different colleges and really trying to identify best practices to better support first-gen low-income students. So I also want to say, Valencia Jones, thank you so much for coordinating all of this hard work and getting this webinar off the ground. We really, truly appreciate you and all your effort in this very busy season. So without further ado, let me go ahead and just tell our counselor audience, this is our final webinar in our webinar series for the academic year 2018-2019. But if you all missed any of our webinars, please visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/collegegreenlight. We have all of our previously recorded webinars. Go ahead, thumbs up, provide some feedback. Also, we're going to send over a feedback survey. We would love to get your thoughts on how we can keep these webinars engaging and informative, and we want to make sure that we have topics that are relevant. So please look out for that survey soon. And if any of you all have any questions or need any assistance getting your students onto the College Greenlight platform, kind of navigating different scholarships or our college tools, please contact us at info@collegegreenlight.com. So that's a wrap. Valencia, Vice Provost Tillman, any departing words?
Oh, Valencia, go ahead.
Departing words? No, I just want to continue to thank everyone for their commitment to helping their students to find opportunities for advanced education. Obviously, we are thinking more deeply about their experience at WashU, but it's always if there is anything that I can do to assist you or your students, please don't hesitate to let me know. I am always happy to not only discuss opportunities at Washington University to get here, but also additional resources that we have to make sure that students are having a fulfilling and enriching experience while they are here on our campus as a part of our community. So thank you so much for your time today.
And I would ditto everything that Valencia said, and also thank all of you for being our champions of education, because I'm a firm believer that a college degree is the pathway to success, and without it, we will all have challenges going forward. And for many of these students, college education is the way out for many of them, for them and their families. So I congratulate and commend all of you for continuing to be champions in this regard.
All right, team. And again, please feel free to follow up if you all have any questions. We truly appreciate all the hard work and all the time that went into this. All right, we're signing off.
Okay.
Alrighty. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.